In this video, we're going to be talking about the 1972 German film, The Merchant of Four Seasons, which was directed and written by Rainer Werner Fassbinder, and which stars Hans Hirschmuller and Irm Hermann. We're Coffee with Aliens at the Movies, a film education and film review channel. My name is Robert Bellissimo. I'm an actor and acting teacher.
I'm Steve Chambers. I'm a writer and actor.
And if this is your first time here, or if you haven't already done so, please consider pressing the subscribe button, which you can find in the bottom right of your screen, and then click the bell in order to get a notification every time we release a new video or go live.
It's interesting. It's about I watched it with Jess, and I think her and I, not immediately, because it takes me, I can't, unless it's like a really like intentionally kind of crowd pleasing movie, like Rocky or Star Wars, I don't really form an opinion of a film. Like I don't know what I really think about it till a few days later. And so a few days after this, I said, "Hey man, what do you think of this? What do you think it's saying? And we both felt the same thing. Like, well, it is what it is. I don't think there's like a hidden code.
No.
I think we're looking at, a fruit salesman who's really struggling, who's been through some serious, trauma in war. I think he's probably not okay anyway, and probably suffering from, definitely suffering from depression, probably going through PTSD. Now, this is 1972. We're not talking about all this stuff then, but it's apparent he's not a well guy. He's married with a little daughter, and he's struggling to get by. And he's not a lovely man. He's a very miserable, upset guy. Cheats on his wife, beats his wife, but wants her back. And so to me, I guess, without going into all of it, there's more to it than that. I think the essence is, and this is something I find really interesting, is the idea of like, I want something in life. I don't like where I'm at. I want something. But when you want that thing, even if you've got that kind of life where like, I hate my job, but I got to do it. I got to pay that bill. I got to pay that credit card off. But while you're doing it, it gives you purpose. You might say you hate it. You might, in fact, actually hate it. You're not living your dream, but you're doing something. Now, careful what you wish for, they say. I think this film's an example of that. Say you pay off that debt. All your struggle, be it angry struggle, whatever, but you've been doing it and now it's gone. And all the stuff you've wished for, like, I want free time. I want all this time in my hands. I want to relax. Now you got it. Here it is. Limitless hours. There's no end time. What are you going to do? See, I believe you have to have the sour to appreciate the sweet. If it's just desserts all the time, I'm going to stop loving the ice cream. I got to eat my vegetables first. And I think once this guy, it goes real bad and he suffers a heart attack and he makes amends with his wife. He hires, as per her idea, they hire someone else to help out. So he's not working all the time. She's not working all the time. They can sit back. They collect money. They start to do financially well. She's having an affair. He knows it, but he's okay with it. I don't know if it's because he thinks that he deserves it, or I think it's because he stopped caring. And this is my point. When you finally reach that thing, like this guy's struggling and now he's made ends meet. They're making more and more money. They're comfortable. He can now finally sit on his ass, and he does. And he just sits there and he stares out the window. And knowing that his wife's having an affair and he doesn't do anything about it, he doesn't react because he doesn't care. He doesn't care about anything. And I think and then ultimately kills himself. And I think that's it. It's without the struggle, without the purpose. That's it. You're doing nothing. And I think that's to me what we're looking at. It's an example of, and now what? You got everything you want. There you go. I mean, we have the flashbacks to war. Obviously, he never got over that. But for me, it's an analogy. It's careful what you wish for. And this guy is starting to he thought all he wanted was, I want time in my hands, man. I want money. I want to stop worrying. Okay. Now what? I hadn't thought that fucking far ahead. So now he's dead. And that's it. That's what I see.
Yeah. No, that's very well said. That's very, very well said. And I think it really does speak to what is the meaning of life. Like even if, like you said, even if you are doing a job you don't like, it gives you that purpose. So then when things are going really well, and in his case, he has a worker that he can really trust to go sell the fruit, and he just pays that guy a wage. It was one of his old war buddies that he meets by coincidence in a cafe when, of course, the first guy had an affair with his wife, and then she found a way to get rid of him, which was quite clever. But I agree. I don't think.
Yeah.
I think it was so obvious that this guy knew what happened as soon as they saw each other, and the guy that had an affair with his wife, right? You could see in both their faces like something happened between them, and he doesn't question it. He just goes through it, and I think he was also enjoying like following the guy to make sure that the guy wasn't stealing. Like he was,
Oh, he was like a little kid. He was so excited. I followed him. I made sure because that was still giving him something to do.
The exact something to do. Yeah, he was really enjoying all that, and I think he is this self-destructive character. He was emotionally abused by his mother. You see the very first scene is him coming
Yeah, I
back
forgot.
from.
I didn't mention that. Sorry,
Yeah,
go on. Yeah, his whole family.
yeah,
That's the whole situation. She says she's
yeah,
ashamed of him. I mean, that's yes.
yeah. And then she wished he had just died over there. And you're like, why is she so harsh? And to the point where that other flashback with his sister, he says, "Well, I'm gonna go join the army because that's even better than living with our mother." Like her mother was so cruel that it's easier for him to go risk his life
Yeah.
than to live with her. And I thought, God, I mean, it's bleak. I mean, a lot of Fassbinder's films are bleak, and he's interested in he's really interested in coldness with characters, which I find I don't see a lot in films. Off the top of my head, I can't think of too many films where maybe like something like Michael Corleone's cold character. Because I guess people want to see emotion, they want to see life, and what do
Jean-Pierre
you?
Melville, you see it in his films. If you think
Yeah,
of Le
yeah,
Samurai or Le
yeah,
Cercle
yeah,
Rouge,
yeah.
and Alain Delon kind of
That's
gave that
true.
off too. Sorry, that's the only
No,
example
no,
I can
that's
think
true.
of. Yeah.
Perhaps we see it more in European cinema than we do in
Oh
Hollywood
yeah, yeah, yeah,
film.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. You never see it here. No.
yeah. And he was interested in that.
Mm.
And I saw this movie about a year ago, and obviously these themes of depression and PTSD, which now it's very open.
Mm.
People talk very openly about this. Celebrities come out and talk about their experience. Athletes talk about their experience with depression and mental health, and it's important to, not even important, essential that you have good mental health, and if you don't, you have someone to talk to. And
Mm.
here we have a guy who has no one to talk to, and he even tries to talk to his sister. He says he walks around with these tormented thoughts, and she just says, "Oh, I'm busy. I have work to do." And I don't think it's because she doesn't care. I think she just doesn't know what to do. I mean, they're just not equipped to help each other. They don't have enough affection for each other, or at least they don't know how to outwardly give it to one another, which I found really, really interesting. And even with his wife, like he's so brutal with her early on. He threatens her. He throws a chair at her when she tries to get him to stop drinking and come home. He's clearly an alcoholic. We see that he was a police officer, and
Yeah, we should talk about that too. That's right.
he got fired because he brought a prostitute in, and she was
Yep.
going down on him right in his office, and he gets
Yep.
caught, and you just think, oh my God, this guy's such a
Because he
sleaze bag.
talks about that quite frequently.
Yeah,
Again, purpose. I used to be a cop like that. He was proud.
yeah, yeah,
But then I guess what are we saying? And then and the only reason you're not now is because you gave into your own like stupidity. You gave into your impulse. Like, so what are we
yeah,
saying? And
yeah.
I mean, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I
No,
was
I
just
got
gonna say,
nothing.
I think he he had told his mother, I think it was an architect he wanted to be. It was another
Yes.
career, and she
I think it was
said,
architect, yeah.
I don't want you to do something with your hands. That's for bums or whatever. And but the
Mhm.
irony is that he later becomes a fruit merchant, where it's, of course you're working with your hands, right? So even becoming a cop, it still wasn't something he wanted to do. We saw him being so vicious with his wife. He throws a chair at her. He goes home and smacks her around in front of the child. He's drinking. He's self-destructive. And then he passes out, and she leaves and goes to her in-laws' place. And when he comes in, of course, and he tries to get her back, and he's quite aggressive and gets into a fight with the brother-in-law, and then he has this heart attack. Once she is about to call a lawyer to have a divorce, and I thought that was interesting. Like at that moment, she was just so sick of what he was doing that she totally changed and was like, you know what, fuck this, and I'm gonna get on the phone, get rid of this guy. And at that moment, everything just comes crashing down, right? And he has that heart attack. And I think, I mean, they don't tell you why she is willing to go back with him, but I imagine that as a result of him having that heart attack, that he was now stripped, and he can't drink anymore either, as the doctor said.
That's
He's
right.
stripped. He's like an extremely vulnerable, needy state.
Yeah.
And perhaps that's how she met him. That's the only thing I can think of, and it just brought them back to that time. And it's like a new beginning. You see her open up the window, and she has that idea to have an employee, and that everything will work out because they said he couldn't do any more heavy lifting with those wagons to sell the fruit. And that's what I imagined it was. It was he was in, and you see in his flashbacks he is this like normal guy. He's an ordinary guy, and he's very vulnerable with his mother. It's just all over his face. He's a broken-hearted, torn up guy. Also, that story with the woman that he really loved, and her parents didn't approve of him. And we see that relationship carried on as well. And she also knows, and then you think, she also doesn't do anything about it, right? So there's all these questions like, why? Or is it because they have a kid and she's just accepting the situation, then she doesn't bring herself to leave? You don't know. You can only, lean into it and connect the dots based on what you see and find some kind of justifiable answer for it that makes you think. That's Fassbinder's whole thing. He wants you to feel and to think. So he has so many themes, so many issues. I mean, to me, it's very ahead of its time because these issues are at the forefront now of people who kill themselves because they don't turn to someone, or they don't seek help. And back then, if you were down, people would just say, get over it. I mean, and that still is very
still
relevant,
the thing,
right?
Yep.
But I saw this a year ago, and again, I loved it for all the content that we're discussing. And when I saw it again, it's interesting that you said because when I had written you yesterday, I'm like, I think I know why his staging is sometimes some of his scenes are artificial, and I think it can go over your head if you're just really consumed in the story. But perhaps on a second or third viewing, if you look at the scene where he goes and has the heart attack, for example, he, of course, the well, depending on what kind of a director it is, but most directors, perhaps if you're more visually inclined, like Hitchcock or Kubrick, actors like that, they're thinking, how can I communicate this scene emotionally through the visual, through the media? Antonioni is another example. And, so he brings out this coldness in a very artificial way. Like, it's almost like you could almost take the whole movie and just chop it up into pictures, and you can see the whole story, because he sort of stages it like the guy comes in, and then you see the brother-in-law's like covering all the women. Like, it's sort of cliche. It's very, very stylized. And then even as he approaches, you cut to the sister, and her face is very neutral. She's just like Hans, But and he holds on it for a long time. Like, there's no cut. I think Hitchcock, people are less aware of his staging because there's so much editing. But here, as soon as he has that heart attack, everyone just looks at the body, and it holds, and then the guy kind of shrugs. The brother-in-law's like, who cares? And then the sister just calmly goes over and calls the 911. And then she's saying to the daughter, don't cry. And the daughter's not crying. The daughter is just very cold, very
Well, this
empty.
brings up something interesting. I mean, if you think about that, I was just trying to find out, I forget the actress's name, but the one who plays Hans's sister, Maria Braun.
Who's in Maria Braun, yeah.
Who is, so talking about that scene where he has the heart attack, She is very still. And my first thought was, well, she is the whole time. There almost seems to be a point of showing us that, an emphasis
Yeah,
of whether
yeah,
the wife's crying or whatever, or when she's with the little girl, she's just very stoic and very still. And I'm wondering, why are you making a point of showing me how I wouldn't say she's unattached because she keeps coming to her brother's defense, so she obviously cares about him. But at the same time,
yeah,
why
yeah,
isn't she showing something? And I wonder if it isn't because she identifies with it, and she's like, I know what he's going through. Like I too feel nothing, but for whatever reason, she can carry on. This guy can't. Like I say, he ultimately kills himself, but the sister doesn't.
yeah,
And I
and
wonder if
yeah,
that's she's a reflection of him. But like she's like
yeah,
because
yeah.
she
They,
comes to his aid. Like I get it, I understand it. Like leave him alone.
yeah,
I'm going through it too. And in fact, and maybe by extension, that is also why the daughter, no matter what shit she sees, her dad beating up her mother or her dad
yeah,
almost dying, is yeah, okay. The daughter says the words like, is my father gonna die? But she says them the way I just did. Is my
yeah.
father
It's
gonna die?
very,
Like she's
yeah,
got
it's very
nothing.
flat.
And
It's
I
very flat.
wonder if so then, okay, the sister and the father, Hans and his sister have this, and then I don't know, by genetics, the daughter will too. Like is I but then to what end? Why are you showing us that these are all not emotionless, but they show emotion differently, right? Like Irmgard, the wife, is very
Yeah, yeah,
show
yeah.
e. Everyone is
Except in the last scene, I like what they, and again, it's so
yeah.
artificial. Like when he's taking all those
Oh,
shots, and
and
it's
then
like a,
her tears are
it's
like
yeah, and it's intentionally fake, right?
I
It's
I
just like
believe
soap
that,
opera.
yes. But
And yeah,
Why?
well, I think what he's doing is most directors, like in order to like I said, Antonioni, Hitchcock, in order to bring out the emotional lives of the characters, they will use motifs. And like Hitchcock will, if there's distance between the characters, they'll put them on the opposite end of the room and put a friggin' lamp in the middle,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
big lamp, to say, oh, okay, these people are
Mm,
distant. Same with
mm,
Antonioni, Les Cleats. He puts glass in
yes,
between them to show distance,
yes.
it's always a figure now, or an object. What Fassbinder does is he uses the people as the motifs, almost like statues, to say that they're cold. They probably know intellectually that they should be showing
Well,
more
this is
emotion, like,
what I
but
yeah,
they can't, and so he highly stylizes it
exactly.
in
So
a
you
way which is very
well,
cliche
you
and
could argue then, like Irmgard, overdoing it with the tears, he could be. Then this kind of comes together for me. Then Fassbinder, the filmmaker, could be saying, like, well, this is how society is telling us to feel about this. To side with Hans. Look, we're not all always. Actually, I bet it is that because think about this. Like, I mean, the whole point of this is like, as I said earlier, fine, that's one aspect. The careful what you wish for, whatever. You got to have purpose. Okay, but then, like looking a little more specifically at Hans and his sister, and by extension, like I say, the daughter, not feeling, which isn't to villainize them or like, oh, they're clearly crazy or they're evil or they're nuts. No, 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 no. Maybe Fassbinder is showing like, look, we all feel different. We don't necessarily feel like you're so like you say like the soap opera thing. Like, and it's
yeah.
true. You know that. Like I know that if someone dies, like I've reacted very inappropriately, like nervous laughter. Like I'm nuts at funerals, and it can be because of A, B, C. You're nervous, you're sad, but you show sadness a different way, and maybe it's exactly that because also we see the wife when what's his face Hans is killing himself and dies with the clearly over the top, like he's not trying to Fassbinder's not trying to sell us on these are this actress's actual fucking tears, like
No, no, no,
it's
no.
ridiculous.
And
And
everyone else,
also
all his
ridiculous,
friends, quote unquote friends, are just like, he cuts to their faces, like for a long time, like he
oh yeah,
becomes
yeah, yeah, yeah.
uncomfortable. And
Well,
you're thinking, why aren't they stopping him? But it's like, I think it's sort of saying that he's already dead. He already died in that war.
exactly, and the way he's
So
drinking is so unrealistic. Shot, like it looks
yeah,
mechanically stupid
yeah,
on
it's very
purpose.
stylized.
And in fact stylized. So speaking of his friend that he hires, and I forget the character's name, that he fires, who's there at his death too, the second guy, not the first guy who's having the affair with the wife, but the second guy who the
Yeah,
wife ends up
yeah,
with.
yeah.
Remember when he first runs into him in the restaurant and that guy's a waiter and they help this
Okay.
terrible hey,
yeah.
and they just go back and forth. I'm like, what are you doing? This, I was getting
And
so
then he
angry.
drops all the
Yeah,
plates
and then they
and just
step
walks out.
over it. We watch them step over it on purpose,
Yeah.
and then the
And
customers
he
don't
goes
really
back to the
react.
plates. He made a point. It's, I
No,
think,
I
again,
know.
he's
They
speaking
come
of,
down.
yeah, like he's communicating the emotional life through like the not necessarily the actors, but
Mm,
like turning the actors into motifs. You know, like Hitchcock in Psycho uses stuffed birds everywhere to, you know,
mm,
to say something about Norman Bates, and he just uses these people to say, look at them. There's nothing happening with them. These scenes are set up like we've seen these kind of scenes in movies all the time.
right. I don't think you're
But
wrong. I think that's
yeah, but
exactly what he's doing in this
that's
film,
exactly, yeah,
which
exactly what he's doing. And I
I
thought
gotta
that was really interesting.
it is interesting. I don't find it enjoyable. I don't love
Yeah,
that. But
right.
I do agree. Like, I think you nailed it because that sort of filled in. Like, I was going to say off the top is like, well, I think the essence of this is blah, blah, blah. We already talked about that. But I was like, but there's more. I don't know what my problem is with, not problem, but like, I feel a little unfeeling toward the film. I wonder why. I think it's specifically a thing he did on purpose. Like, I agree
Yeah,
with you.
yeah,
He made me feel detached just as the characters are, which isn't to say that like just because oh you were successful makes it a good I'm not, whatever, an enjoyable or whatever you want to call it. I don't good's a little film. Like he was successful, I think, in his use of technique and his
yeah,
experiment in his storytelling technique. I think he was successful. um yeah, that is interesting. I do agree. You just gave me a lot to think about. I
yeah,
think that's all that feels like it fills in any gaps I had. That being said, yeah, it's a fine movie. I didn't love it, but I don't have any problem with it. I think I feel toward the film how a lot of the characters feel in the movie, which is sort of
yeah,
like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah. I mean,
which
I think
that's cool.
ultimately, yeah. I mean, I think ultimately, like in Fassbinder is quoted as saying, he wants you, like I said earlier, he wants you to think and feel. And I think I've
Mhm.
learned a lot from you in this discussion about this that I hadn't thought of, and vice versa. So
Oh
he's
yeah,
encouraging these kind of conversations,
which
and
is
I think
cool.
it all, yeah, and I think it all really stems from the mother. I think the fact
Right.
we see right away that scene where he's just knocking on the door and let in, and you know,
Hmm,
tears
hmm,
him up, not
hmm.
screaming, but just very cold, very distant, saying just awful things that you would never say to your son, even though later on she says that she did her best. And again, in a very cold way in that scene,
Very.
that she had affection for him
That's
when
another
clearly,
good point. That
yeah, when
is where it all comes from.
it all comes from that. And it's this guy, and I think he makes
Huh.
you, I think without that mother, you wouldn't care about Hans as
So then
much.
aren't we
You
saying
really
then,
empathize with him as a result. I think his mother destroyed him. I mean,
well,
perhaps he
yes,
also
yes,
had,
yes. No,
he
but
may
think
have had
about,
other mental health issues. He clearly had depression, whether that was born that way or just as a result of his circumstances. You don't
well,
know,
no,
but
you
it,
don't know. And that's true because there are extenuating circumstances. But what
yeah,
if we're saying then, like, what if it's a shot at the mother character and maybe Fassbinder's own mother? Who the hell knows? But because the way she reacts, like she's kind of nasty, right? But just the words are like her. She's very detached, very detached. And then what happens? She has two kids. They're both detached, right? Hans,
yeah,
the sister, detached. He has a kid. She's detached. So is Fassbinder saying like, look what this like? It just runs down the line. The
yeah, I think
grandmother has
so.
affected the
Yeah,
granddaughter,
I think so. I
and
think
the
that's part of
father
it.
was a severe casualty in the middle of it, like killed himself. And then so when that little girl grows up and has children, it's the same and the
Yeah.
same, like a Russian doll of nothingness.
Yeah,
Which,
I'm very fascinated by that.
that's
I think we've
interesting.
touched on that in other discussions. I'm always fascinated by behavior
Same.
that is passed down, and I'm sure you have seen this, Steve, like on the streets. You know, perhaps if you see a couple getting into a big argument and their child is there, and you could tell that because
Yeah,
they're doing it publicly, it's so normal that they're comfortable in the chaos of doing that even in
interesting.
public.
That's
And
good
then you
point.
look at the children and they're
And
just
that's they're
blank.
gonna what? Yeah,
Yeah,
And
And I've
so
seen it.
then that brings up the final. Well, that's a great question, right? And then the kid sees it. Now, do they normalize it? Like, so is it a learned thing? So have they learned that that's normal, or do they genetically inherit that type of behavior?
I think both, really.
Right.
It's normal, and it's genetic. And then hope, you hope that,
Hmm.
you hope that you build on to improve the next generation, whether it's emotionally or economically
Well, let's
or
go
what
with
have
that
you.
point.
But
So then
yeah,
you hope to do that. Yeah, of course.
you
You
hope.
want
I mean,
better.
he doesn't. Well, I mean, of course, in the end, you see that she has an affection with the guy who starts to work for them, who went to
That's
war.
true. So there's
Uh,
hope.
yeah, but he still does, like, that last scene feels like a business transaction. Again, they're all neutral in the
Oh,
car at
well,
the
it
funeral.
is. It
Again, no
totally
one's
is.
crying that this guy died. That was another thing.
Well, he's
Um,
also a miserable piece of shit. Like,
well, yeah, and I think he really already spiritually had died in that
I
war. I think
agree.
that's,
I
I
agree.
think that's why they show him being whipped, and then he says to the soldiers once they save him in
Why didn't you
Morocco,
shoot me?
why didn't you just let him shoot me? And then they cut to him dying right there, and I think Fassbinder was saying this guy's already been long dead,
I
and
agree.
this was just, I think this is like this is just, he had to come back, and this is what's
Hmm.
happened. Like, it's just like a 10-year death or whatever, how many years in the
Yeah.
making. But that last scene again, he's not cuddly. It's very, then again, to say we're going to be together at a funeral, the death of your husband is of course that's not going to be joyous. It's going to be sort
No.
of it's going to be kind of awkward, but you see right away that when he meets her, he also seemed interested in her. Like, again, there's a close up
Yes.
of him just like long staring at her for a long time. But you do see that he's much better with the daughter, like with her homework. He made a point to help her. I mean,
Oh yeah.
how many people when they're at their kid's house, friends, and they have kids, go and say, "Oh, I'll help you with your homework." Like, usually it's like, "Hey, I'm going to stay out of this." And
Oh
I thought
yeah.
that was interesting. So perhaps things can get better for that daughter, at least. I don't know if that's the intent, but
Maybe.
I just thought those, and those neutral expressions, even when the daughter like walks in on the mother having sex with the first,
Oh,
she has
Jesus
that affair,
Christ.
and again,
Yes.
he just, like anyone else would, as soon as the door would open, the director would cut away from it, and he just holds on the daughter's
Holds.
face and holds on her face, looking back as she's there having sex with a guy that's not the father. And it's so uncomfortable, right? Like, there's so many scenes in this where he does that. So
Mm.
I'm always, I think Fassbinder, I don't know his work so well. I've seen maybe 4 or 5 of his movies, but I'll tell you one thing, they always leave you thinking. They definitely feel something about it. But I know not everyone is going to love this because it's so bleak, right? And it's harsh, but I sort of know that kind of behavior. I'm very familiar with that behavior. So when I see it on screen, I find it interesting because
Right.
don't see that um, very often. But apparently, he was highly influenced by Douglas Sirk, and I haven't seen any of Douglas Sirk's
Oh,
films.
I've seen a bunch. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
because he
Huh.
did that. Apparently, he did things like that. Like, he was interested in things that were cliche, but he thought that there were things that were real about cliches and things that we consider fake.
I agree. Yeah.
Apparently he would use actors in a similar way, almost like models, to bring out
Yes.
his motifs. I don't know.
Yes. Yes, this is
What
true.
have you seen?
I've
Like,
seen a
all that?
bunch. I can't remember
Okay.
the titles. I've seen a lot. Maybe all.
Yeah.
No, I probably haven't seen all of his movies, but and I like them. They really are
Yeah.
in a world of their own, his movies,
I
and
want
not
to
in a
watch them
David
now.
Lynch way. Nothing against David Lynch. It's fine. But like they almost feel alien, but you're not sure why. Okay. So it's not like there's anything overtly strange. There isn't, or overtly up or down, or like, it's all just okay. And I think maybe what feels alien isn't the acting or even the stories, but it is the shooting technique with Douglas Sirk. It might be, I'm trying to remember. There is something. I think the shots are held a little longer. Things feel a little more paced
Yeah.
out like a painting, opposed to, again, what we're used to in even an old Hollywood movie from the 50s when Sirk was around. Like, things just moved a little quicker. And again, I'm not saying Douglas Sirk movies are slow. They're not. Like, story wise and acting and dialogue, but I think the shots are maybe held a little longer. I'm not sure. I haven't seen any in a while, but there is something definitely alien about his films. There's something definitely alien about the three Fassbinder
Yeah.
films I've seen.
Yeah.
I okay, yeah, forget it. I'll save that for another talk. I was about to go into it'll take us into an hour long
Yeah.
thing. Anyway,
We'll save it.
interesting that he liked Douglas Sirk.
Yeah, highly
Can't
influenced. Highly
see
influenced.
I can't right now see how, except that both their films, using just their shooting techniques, do feel removed from a regular reality that we're used to seeing in traditional movies.
Yeah.
But I don't know what the similarities are in their techniques.
Yeah, I'd be curious to go look because I haven't seen any of Sirk's films, and I've been meaning to always see the one. I think it's All That Heaven
Yeah.
Allows with.
That's a good. I've seen that twice. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I've been meaning to see that one.
That
So I
was
think I'm
remade too in the 2000s or in the 90s, I think, with Dennis Quaid. I forget.
oh,
It
okay.
was remade, yeah. But anyway,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I'm curious because it's really fascinates me and visually how he
Mm.
communicated that. But this film actually put him on the map internationally because he was known in Germany at that point. But he was also someone who was constantly in the media because
Oh,
he was a controversial figure, like
yeah.
huge. Like even
Okay.
now people would be like, whoa, like he he did a lot of crazy stuff. So people didn't take him too seriously as a filmmaker because he was almost like a media personality. Like he was very
Interesting. Okay.
rebellious, and like you can watch like some just him talking to his friends, and if they're having a debate, he's going insane. Like he's screaming, and he's it's almost scary.
Uh,
But yeah, but this when this came out, he got a lot like all over the world. People were like, "Whoa, this guy's really good." And then he would go on to make a number of
a
films
lot
that,
of movies.
yeah, well, he made like,
Like
he died at
40.
37,
Yeah.
and by the time he was 27, he already made like 15 features. Like this guy was a workaholic. Like he did not
Yeah.
stop. Of
Nope.
course, he did a lot of cocaine
Well, I
too,
think
right?
that
And he
helped
was
with the
just,
productivity.
I think so, yeah. I mean, he very much had a live hard, die young life.
Yeah.
There's no way you can keep up with that and not just
No.
drop dead
Oh, you got
at
to pay the price. Yep.
37 to die of a heart attack. But he's someone I've always been interested in. It's only in the last 4 years where I've started to see some of his films, and they're intriguing me more and more. So I think I'm going to take a deep dive one of these days. But I'm glad you liked it more than Maria Braun, at least.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And he did similar things in that too. I'd have to go back to really look at. Obviously, that scene we discussed was he was doing that same sort of using actors as statues, motifs.
Right.
I can't say why at this moment, but that's when again in the early '70s he started to, as he said, highly influenced by Douglas Sirk's style of
Hmm.
filmmaking. So
Interesting.
yeah, but you can watch this on the Criterion channel. Of
Yep.
course, the Criterion collection has it on both Blu-ray and DVD. There's actually some wonderful special features as well with interviews with the two leads, the Hans and the Erms, the husband and wife. And there's actually a film professor who does a half an hour talk on Fassbinder, which is really, really good as well. So you can check it out on the Criterion channel. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Again, if this is your first time here, or if you haven't already done so, please consider pressing the subscribe button, which you can find just floating above my head to the top right, and then click the bell in order to get a notification every time we release a new video or go live. Thank you again. We'll see you next time.